We could now be just days away from the war that we've been hoping that would never happen. It could be right in front of us. All of the signs continue to point to an imminent attack against Iran. You look at all the physical signs, it looks to me like these negotiations are just delaying tactics to buy more time until military operations can be brought to their full. And then once that happens, then it's just a matter of when the political order to launch will be given. Now, there was just meetings between the United States and Iran in Oman today. On Sunday, the Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi addressed his country and talked about some of the things that they saw. And one of the things that he mentioned right off the top, Arakchi appeared to be taking the threat of an American military strike seriously. He said that after multiple rounds of talks last year, the U.S. attacked us in the midst of negotiations, he said, when it joined Israel's war. We are monitoring the situation closely, he continued, assessing all the signals, and will decide on the continuation of the negotiations, he said. It's not clear where it will go. And President Trump on Air Force One last night also reiterated that, the talk was fine. It was good. We'll probably be talking later this week. But they want a deal. They want a deal real bad. Well, a lot of the problem comes in what kind of a deal, who wants, each side wants. You have the United States saying that it has to be no nuclear enrichment, no long-range missiles, and no support for the proxies. That's what we say. And no killing your protesters, added by Marco Rubio. That's what the United States has said. Iran has said the only thing they're willing to even discuss is the nuclear enrichment issue, and even that only to a limited number, not a zero. So you haven't heard anything from the United States so far to talk about the obvious discrepancy with what they said going in and what they say coming out. Trump didn't even address that. He just stated in this category of, we're looking for a deal. But the Iranians, on the other hand, are. And earlier today, Foreign Minister Arakchi also brought that up and then made some key points here. This is from today. He said enrichment is non-negotiable, just non-negotiable. He said, no, we won't even talk about that. We will not give up Iranian enrichment under any circumstances, including war. No retreat under pressure. Backing down is surrender, he says. So they won't do it. Iran doubts U.S. intent due to sanctions and military moves. The United States put additional sanctions yesterday on Iran. Oman may host another round if viable, but missiles off the table, not even on the negotiating table for Iran. They rule out any talks about its ballistic missile program now or ever. CENTCOM role rejected. Apparently, the United States tried to get the CENTCOM Central Command U.S. commander, to the general officer in charge of that region, into the negotiations. Arakchi called their participation of the U.S. Central Command general totally unacceptable. So he says, no, we're not going to do that. So all that continues to tell you is that the two sides are miles apart, which leads to the question, are these negotiations intended to accomplish anything other than to make it appear that everyone's trying to be reasonable, but it's actually just buying time for military preparations? Now, that is a normal thing that you could even think of just in a concept, but when you look at the physical activities, it takes on even more relevancy. For example, here in just the last 48 hours or so, there has been a continued buildup, and this is as of yesterday. A total of 112 U.S. Air Force C-17s have now either arrived or are en route to the Middle East, with a further 17 to 18 in progress flights. Number of Royal Air Force logistics flights from RAF Marham to RAF Korturi, sorry about that pronunciation, in Cyprus, movements of the U.S. Air Force Hornets. So there's lots of Air Force. If you don't know, those C-17s, one of the pictures right there, these are the large transports. You can move tanks in these things, large combat vehicles, air defense missiles. These are some of the aircraft that's used to use a lot of the air offensive and air defensive missiles into the region. And you see there is a huge number, much more than anything normal, implying that you have been moving lots and lots of equipment and ammunition in. There has also just been, in the last 48 hours or so, according to Channel 14 out of Israel, U.S. has finalized the deployment of Patriot and THAAD missiles defense system across 20 bases in the Middle East. 20 bases. So this tells you that we are seriously taking the issue of air defense seriously. And of course, listen, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You're not going to move in a buttload of air defense systems unless you expect to receive a lot of missiles. Meaning this is much, much more than just the normal deployment. And when you take a look at the bases that are scattered throughout the region, you see that there is a lot there. And listen, I mean, it's useful and necessary to have additional missiles and all these other air defense capabilities, whether it's THAAD or Patriot or anything else. But as I have talked about many times, and the Iranians have proven last year especially, their offensive missiles will get through our defenses. We'll shoot some of it down, but not all of it. So if anybody thinks that this is going to be some kind of golden dome in the early stages or something, and that everything is going to get stopped, you need to just disabuse yourself of that. It's definitely not going to happen. So that's on the ground. Then, of course, we have in the air and in the sea, the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is on site, has been for a while, is fully deployed and in a position to launch military offensive operations. As you can see scattered in that picture up to the upper left-hand side, there's additional offensive air power that's also been deployed throughout the region that can be brought to bear in the event that an attack is shifted there. So you see that every way you want to look, this is something that militarily the preparations are complete. Basically, everything is in position. At any time now, an order can be given. What appears the last stage is what is the political signal that's going to be given that. And that was potentially signaled yesterday in the news, and that Netanyahu was going to meet President Trump. And according to the Israeli information here, Netanyahu will fly to Washington this week to meet with President Donald Trump on Iran. The meeting will take place on Wednesday. He will arrive on Tuesday as the U.S. and Iran appear set for a second round of nuclear talks. We'll see about that. But Netanyahu was originally scheduled to be in Washington from February 18th to 22nd, but the meeting was moved a week earlier. So that right there tells you that the likelihood is that something when you see that all the military preparations have been complete, when you see that the Israeli prime minister has moved up his meeting and it's going to happen in just a few days, it certainly looks like that we are in the final stages of waiting for the political word to go. This is not a good situation. This is something that should be concerning to every American. It should be something concerning to every Israelis, especially the regular people. I think too many people believe that all of this combat power is going to do what it has in the past, that it's going to cause a lot of damage and destruction in Iran, that they see what happened in Venezuela, and they believe that was a product of an overwhelming military power, and that the U.S. can just impose its will on whoever it wants at virtually no cost, and they can get they had what they called a regime change. It was actually a leader change because the regime is still fully in place in Venezuela. But that's what they see. They see something that was nice, quick, clean, easy, victory, get out, no casualties. And they think that same thing can happen here, or that they think it's going to be relatively cost-free, that there'll be some casualties, but not that many. But they see what has happened in the past before, and they think that that'll happen again. Primarily, they see that the Iranian side has how it's reacted, and they think that's going to happen again. It bears repeating here. The conditions are different this time. I've shown you all this past week. Many American pundits, people who are very close to President Trump, have almost been crying on television, begging President Trump, don't do negotiations. Even if you succeed, according to Jack Keane, it'll be a failure because all you'll do is allow the regime to stay in power. They are just obsessed with, we know that we can't live with them. If they exist, it's bad. We have to use this military power and destroy them. That's the only thing. Oblivious to the potential cost. Oblivious to the fact that militarily, there is no guarantee you're going to succeed here. See, there's this myopia in our brain here, and this delusion, self-delusion, that we are believing our own press. So many times, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, President Trump, many of these other pundits, they have all talked about how great our military is. Caroline Leavitt, just a couple of days ago from the podium in the White House briefing room, said we have the most powerful military in the history of the world, and Iran may find out as she threw some papers on that lectern. I fear that people may believe that. They may think, yeah, we can do that. We are that good that we can just impose our will on somebody else. It doesn't matter what they want, what they think, anything else. We can just, if we want to do this, we will do it, and no one can say anything about it. That's one of the big problems, because this situation is different. Because we have set the standard that it's a regime change that we're looking for. The regime in power in Tehran, the mullahs, the Peveskian, all of those folks and all of those that are power, the RGC, they now have no motivation to self-restrain if we attack. See, in 2025, in 2024, when the attacks took place, they were limited strikes. And everybody understood, and I mean everybody on both sides, and on all three sides, Israel, Iran, and the United States, everybody understood that it was a limited operation. Nobody was trying to wipe out the other side. Nobody faced an existential threat. Now they do. So if you were on the receiving end of a limited strike, and you knew that if you struck back too hard, the other side could come back much, much harder and cause a lot more damage, then even though you may have to grit your teeth because you hated getting hit, it's logical, it's rational, it's self-preservation to limit your reaction. If, on the other hand, you're told that the objective of this one is not a limited strike, but something to eliminate you and destroy your entire government, your entire leadership, all of them, wipe them out. And that has been expressly stated this past week by many U.S. pundits. We've shown some on his show here. You now give incentive and motivation to the other side to use every weapon and missile they have at their disposal. Because if your options are use everything or just die, I mean, it doesn't take much intelligence and experience to understand they're going to choose, the fight method. You put them into the corner, they're going to fight. That's what's different about this one. And you see that we put all this air defense missiles in the area, lots of air offensive capabilities, lots of sea power, air power. We don't have any ground power. That's also important. You're trying to do this on the cheap. You want to have this operation, a regime change, and you want to have all these levels of destruction that can only be done on a full-scale war with a ground component. The naval and the air are supportive elements. They are not replacing the ground element. You can't do that and have those kind of expansive operations and objectives. If you want a regime change and if you want to wipe these folks out, then you have to have like an Iraqi War 1 or 2 style full campaign. But we're trying to do it on the cheap without any ground troops whatsoever. And historically, that's just incredibly unlikely to happen. And I don't see any chance of it in this case. All I see is that we give the incentive to our opponent, who will then be turned into an outright enemy, to kill Americans and to kill Israelis in the area. And it's important to point out here, and I find it repulsive and repugnant that when we're talking about the casualties that could be caused here by Israeli casualties, and if you don't care about the Iranian casualties, if you care about the Americans and if you care about the Israeli people, then you should not want this war to start, because it's a virtual certainty that many on both sides of that will die unnecessarily. People who are alive right now while I'm making this video will be dead after this war starts, because Iran will take its very lethal and potent missile force and will use it. I mean, they're going to. And yet you have somebody like the U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee is trying to convince everybody that this is really a good thing. And you just see he's just going to great lengths in this video. This is from yesterday on Newsmax, where he's trying to explain to everybody why this is something that really is necessary.
Yeah, I don't sense that there is this panic going on. The Israelis are amazingly resilient people. They've come to know that they live in a very dangerous place, and there are people every day wake up trying to kill them. I wish Americans understood that. And when I say Americans, I wish Americans understood that the Iranians want to kill them. They've been saying for 47 years, death to America. A lot of Americans say, what happens in Iran doesn't affect me. Oh, yes, it does. because they've been telling us for 47 years if they ever had a long-range ballistic missile, they'd light that puppy up and send it straight to the United States. What we don't fully understand is how many Iranian operatives, maybe in the form of Hezbollah, got into our country through a very open border during the Biden years. How many of them are sleeper cells, just standing by, waiting on an order from Tehran to unleash holy hell against Americans? We simply don't know.
Okay, that's about all I can stomach of that one. Sorry about that. Listen, there's a couple of things that are important there. Number one, he says, that he's trying to portray Iran as this powerful menace that, oh my God, we have to get rid of them. We've got to deal with them once and for all, or they're coming after us on our own homeland. And they've been trying to kill us all this time. Why do you suppose that is, Ambassador Huckabee? Why do you suppose they've been chanting death to America for all these years? Could it be because we've worked against them every step of the way? We've assassinated their generals. We've assassinated their senior members of their military, their scientific community, leading figures. That we've attacked them once directly, indirectly a couple of other times on top of that. All kinds of sanctions. We've tried to crush them. We just tried to have a regime change operation by fomenting a protest inside their country. We, using our economic tools, crashed their economy, crashed their real for the purpose of stirring up people, gave them ammunition and communications gear to try and get them to rise up. I don't know why they would be saying that. If you want us to be safe from Iran, the answer isn't let's destroy them all and kill everyone. The answer is let's just learn to have stable relations with everyone. I told you right now, so far we have not given Iran motivation to take that last step and to really attack us hard in the region. And I said, don't give them motivation, incentive to do so. We've already given them incentive to do all these things and to continue to live and continue to be chanting death to America because of all those things I just mentioned. That's a very short list. There's a much more expansive list I could have used. But to be doing all these things to somebody and then saying, when they react, oh my God, look what they did. See, I told you, they're nefarious. I mean, that is absurd. It's embarrassing at face value. It's like walking up to somebody, punching them in the face in a schoolyard or something, or in the public square, just smacking somebody in the face. And then when they retaliate, you point to everybody and say, look, the bully, he's coming after me. I mean, it's absurd to say that out loud. That's exactly what we're doing here. So when you hear somebody like Mike Huckabee say this, see through it for what it is at face value. It is a pathetic example and an attempt to manipulate you, the American people. That's what, understand that. You should be insulted because the attempt is a pathetic attempt to manipulate you into supporting something that you should otherwise never support and would never support. They're trying to trick you into believing something that clearly isn't true, and that you have to do this in order to keep us safe. And listen, I don't know if there are any sleeper cells in the United States or not. We did have a lot of open borders. There could be all kinds of nefarious folks in our country. I don't know. But clearly, they're not going to act unless we go to try and destroy them. So if you don't want those, if there are sleeper cells, if you don't want them active and doing stuff, then don't go trying to kill all their leaders. Don't you see that? You talk about 47 years. Have they done anything in those 47 years other than chant? Have these sleeper cells done anything? No, no, no. Therefore, it's logical to assume that they won't, as long as we don't pose an existential threat to them to where it's either fight or die. Don't give them that chance. That's why I'm so adamant that we not go down this path. Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be here on Tuesday. There's going to be a talk on Wednesday, and history being what it is, anywhere from Wednesday night, our time on, we could be in the hot zone. And this whole thing could launch, and this flame could strike. And this is already a tinderbox here. We don't need to add anything to it. You see that our allies, some of the Arab regimes, nobody's with us on this. Nobody's giving us overflights. Nobody's participating because they see how foolish this is. Our allies in the region see how foolish this is. Why can't we? That's what we need right now, folks. So I just want to keep you up to date on this. I know it's Sunday morning. We don't normally do live shows on Sunday, but I wanted to make sure you had this before we, you start your week here, so we're at least aware and tracking with whatever's going on. And that if anything happens in the first of the week, you'll be aware of it, so it won't take you by surprise, because we're unintimidated, uncompromised to bring you the truth. We're going to continue to do that. We'll see you next week on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.